think we can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and friends in the insurance industry. In commemoration of Insurance Consciousness Month, welcome to episode 2 of our second season. Today, given that almost all of us are working from home and 100% of us are reliant on the web, the topic at hand is very timely, and I am certain we will learn a lot from this. So to welcome you today, as well as to remind everyone of the house rules, let me pass the floor over to Mr. Carl Ventura, CPI's young, energetic, and talented CIO. Carl?
Hello, everyone. So thank you very much again for attending. So we appreciate all the learning and collaboration that we've been having for the past webinars that together with Pira-Iiap as well as PIC, where we share the knowledge, right? So just for the house rules, the webinar is recorded. However, we do have a Q&A section and a chat open, right? So if you do have any questions, and this is a very interesting topic which you may have questions about, you can ask it anonymously in the Q&A section, or if you do want to share your experience to everybody, do use the chat box where you can send your message to all the panelists as well as the attendees to share your experiences to all, right? So without further ado, I'll hand the floor to Sir Francis to introduce our speaker for today.
Thanks, Carl. As I said, I'm glad that Carl is with us this afternoon to help Mitch and myself. I like the way that Raymond has cloaked his video until the very last minute. So, merong suspense. Di ba? Okay, our speaker today is the Chief Technology Officer of Red Rock IT Security. He has a PhD in computer science from the University of the Philippines. Go UP. He is also a professor in the University of the Philippines, teaching, of course, computer and network security. He is a seasoned IT security consultant across different industries, covering finance, telecommunications, and other service industries. He actively participates in the different certification programs and conferences. I will allow him to mention these matters to you himself. He has participated and won the most prestigious awards in these conferences, and maybe Raymond will say something about that too. And he is also, and listen to this, he is the only security expert in the Philippines who is recognized by SANS Institute. Kaisa-isa na recognized. SANS Institute is the largest source of security training in the world. And also of the GIAC, or the Global Information Assurance Certification, the entity who certifies and validates the skills of IT professionals all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Professor Raymond Nunez. Raymond?
All right, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So let me just share my screen. Good afternoon. Yes, I'm gonna hug you for the next 1.5 hours, and hopefully I could impart to you a lot tips on how to manage our security properly. So, as an organization, and you'll be also picking up some tips as an individual. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask after the talk. I'll be able to answer it. And in case there's not much time, you'll have my contact number. You could send it to Carl, and you could forward it for me to answer. So, short intro on my organization, Red Rock IT Security. So we've been 15 years experience, at least the senior guys in finance, telecom, software, government, and the academy. Most of us are MS and PhD candidates and have been professors in computer security in University of the Philippines, LaSalle, with published scientific papers. And as Sir was mentioning a while ago, we are currently have the only Filipinos who have won DEF CON hacking competition. This is held in Las Vegas yearly. And if you win competitions there, you're basically given what we call a black badge, and it's equivalent of Olympic gold. But this one is the hacking community. So it's a proud moment, and hopefully I'm not last. We're still grooming a lot of our young engineers to be able to level up their skill set and hopefully compete there also in the near future. One tidbit, I have broken into a lot of banks, corporate and government infrastructure. Yeah, we hack them legally, of course. So I get paid to do that. And if on the other side of the fence, if I was not authorized to do that and I got caught, I go to jail. This time is they contact me, they contract us to do it for them. And of course, the objective is find the vulnerabilities first before on a different one, use it illegally and get them some exposure that's not necessary. So some stats. Would you believe that we are on the top 10 most attacked country in the world? This was a stat 2018. Not sure if it's viewable, but Philippines is there, top 10. 2019, we were also somewhere up there. Then I got this recent stat last August 16 from Kaspersky. We're actually promoted. So we're not only getting on the top tier of COVID, we're also in the top 10, ninth now on the most attacked country in the world. And me being in the telecom for quite some time, it was the theory was we were able to connect a lot of our users online, especially with the free Facebook, free mobile data way back early 2012, 2013. But security aspect did not follow. Okay, and now with the COVID, everyone was forced to work from home, and organizations are forced to expose their services online that wasn't supposed to be done yet without proper testing, shoots up yung security incidents. And security incidents in the news, well, we are in the insurance industry. Of course, a lot of this would have an implication mga na-breach abroad. Locally, not much news yet. May mga minor incidents akong alam na mga hinulungan, but not a big one. Yet as big as that, of course, yung biggest natin would probably the Comelec na 2016, where our voter record was dumped online. Then, not even going that far, a lot of our local organizations are actually being used na breach. So there was this Wendy's one, basically in delivery detail. So now, diba, if may tinatago kang address, okay, ano ka nagpapadeliver ng food, now everyone knows your other address. Okay, so think about that. Also, recent, this was just sometime June, the Wirecard fraud that they claimed that we have 2 billion euros or $2 billion in our local banks, which apparently it's a fraudulent certification. Okay, and the recent one, UCPP, 167 million allegedly stolen, and websites, local websites that we use, like TV5 was actually breached at some point. Now, this just I'm trying to throw home a point that it's not just happening outside; it's already happening here locally, and we are targeted. We are gonna be victimized sooner or later. And the common question we get in Red Rock is how do we actually get breached in the first place? Now, it's actually very easy for an organization to get hacked. Okay? It just stem from one user clicking a malicious link or opening up a malicious attachment. Then that's about it. So that's the most basic one. You think it's gonna be super high tech, a lot of foreign agents doing their work 24/7. Then one guy's gonna be on their keyboard for 5 minutes and say, "I'm in." No, no, that's not how it works. That's Hollywood. But typically, even us, if we're gonna go penetrate an organization in a penetration testing engagement, this is our main go-to. Send an email, make them give out their credentials, or have them click a malware and then gain access to our workstation. So, IT security and insurance records, it boils down to Data Privacy Act of 2012. So, Data Privacy Act, it is a law that would protect our personal information from unauthorized processing. Now, before, wherein pupunta tayo sa mall, and then we have a lot of people asking for our details for credit cards, promos, Dati binibigay lang natin yun. Now, it's more aware. People are more aware wherein they treat now their data as may monetary value. So they don't just give it away, especially with the awareness program of the National Privacy Commission, which now gives us, as an organization that processes data, liability, right? To make sure that it is secure and it's not being used for anything other than what's intended for. And the data privacy law requires our organization to have a DPO, data privacy officer, which would oversee the compliance to the law. And if you haven't appointed a DPO, the de facto DPO is the CEO, and they will be responsible for any violation of the data privacy law. Also, there's a requirement that in case you are notified of a breach information within your control, in 72 hours, you have to assess and report that breach. Otherwise, there's going to be harsh penalty for non-compliance. And information we're handling, of course, insurance and healthcare industry, it's very targeted. And unfortunately, right, for insurance, it's not heavily regulated in terms of security. So strengthening security becomes less of a priority for quite some time. But data privacy law actually is augmenting this because everyone's under the data privacy law. Everyone has to comply. And what are the attackers gonna gain from attacking you? But not sure if it's a surprise that insurance and healthcare data are actually sold in the underground market, and information like PII, SPII, health records, it has longer shelf life and technically not replaceable, right? Your password, if it gets breached, you could replace it, no problem. If your fingerprint data gets breached, medyo masakit siya i-replace. So, Men in Black type, but you get the idea. Okay? And insurance data, they contain health, property information, financial information, beneficiaries, right, which would be considered sensitive on some environment. So we need to really protect it. And we've conducted some tests on insurance systems, and some findings we found under IT infrastructure is we got applications that's easy to bypass authentication, some vulnerabilities in place that we could tweak our request and gain access to information that were not authorized. Some would have authorization issues wherein any agent or insurer who has access to the system could manipulate the records, okay, and gain access to information other than the user. And typically, this should not be an issue, but we are now allowing a lot of online signups, meaning anyone from the public could go to your site, create an account, and then be a user on the system. And then once they're a user, they could do manipulation on the system and get information that they're not supposed to access. So this is a typical issue we found. Then we'll have some controls in place in a bit to address this. And now with the advent of mobile application and web application, there's a lot of vulnerabilities going around. And to a point that we could even read through the entire backend database of an organization just with mobile app access. So with that in mind, let me introduce to you to the CIS, Center for Information Security, Critical Security Control. So CIS, nonprofit entity, they want to help design a guideline for best practices on securing IT system. Now, what they were able to do is come up with 20 controls. If you could comply with it to some degree, it would really help you to fight off nation-state sponsored attacks, financially motivated attackers, commodity malware, or even script kiddies, or mga young ones na just playing around the network. And you'll be surprised that 20 controls lang, we could actually the CIS not organization is actually worldwide consortium of US government agencies, Department of Defense, Australian intelligence. So there's a lot of input. Basically, parang what's the best practice now we could mandate and then have everyone secure if they just followed it. So the CIS basically it was divided into two. So although 20 lang siya, merong first 5, which is the most basic ones, and then the rest, which is the next 15. So the first 5 controls is actually used to protect our organization from a wide range of vulnerabilities. Okay? And this is low-hanging fruit. Now, hopefully, everyone could comply initially in first 5 lang. But check natin yung list, diba? How easy is it to follow this 5 controls? So top 5. The first two alone, inventory of authorized and unauthorized device. Meaning, do you have a list of your workstations, laptops, mobile phones? Ano mga details meron yan? Specs, gano'ng katanda na? They are still running XP. For the software one, di ba? Are you still running Windows NT or mainframe ng mga lumang insurance system? Or are we running the latest and greatest Windows 10 environment na most likely not. But di ba? Sometimes I go to organization to do an audit, then just ask them outright, di ba? What's your status ng asset inventory? And kakamot sila ng ulo, then they'll give an Excel file na pag chinek mo, last modified 2 years ago. It's not updated and it's not that much relevant kasi with the advent of technology, every week may new device ka pumapasok depending gaano kalaking organization. So if you don't have an inventory of what's allowed in your environment and what's not allowed, you're gonna have a hard time securing. Kasi how could you defend a system that you don't know is actually existing on your infrastructure, right? There's also secure configurations of hardware and software. I have some documents I could share in a bit. They also came from CIS that would allow you to have basically hardening guide. If I have this kind of switch, if I have this kind of server, what are the steps to do to secure it? So unfortunately, we don't have time to discuss details on it, but I'll be able to point you to that page where you could download it based on your environment and then check out how could we better secure our systems piece by piece. Next is number 4 is the continuous vulnerability assessment and remediation. This is a component wherein if we have asset inventory, we're able to assess vulnerabilities on it because if it has software, it would have vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities to fix more often than not requires patching and remediation. So if you do not have an inventory, how could you assess the vulnerability? So it ties hand in hand. And once you are able to assess that it is vulnerable, you should have someone or some procedures and resources in place to patch it. So we've been into a lot of organizations ulit na, yeah, we do our VA, vulnerability assessment. Yeah, we know it's vulnerable. Okay? But they come to a point pag remediation na, wala kaming team to patch. Okay, or we have some a team to patch, but they are actually being used to install new services. So napapabayaan na yung vulnerability, and it's actually very dangerous because a lot of the major hacks, I have some scenarios in a bit, actually stem from vulnerabilities that they already know existed and walang nagpatch. Okay, so that's a component of it. And then last dito sa critical security controls number 5 is control use of administrative privileges, meaning there should not be anyone logging into your organization as an administrator. Okay, it should be regular user and then switch to admin, so they would have some proper accountability. And this goes hand in hand with your own computer, even at home. What is the only reason why we would need administrative access to on our laptops or desktops? The only time you need admin privileges if you have to configure something na may hardware related, or you have to install software. Okay? You do not need admin privileges to surf Facebook. You don't need admin privileges to listen to a webinar. So why would you run your system with administrative control not in place, okay, and browse some sites? So if your browser gets breached, if you are able to click a malicious link na hindi mo unexpectedly, right? The attacker would now have immediately admin access, okay, administrative level privileges. But if you are using a standard user or a low privilege user and it gets breached, the damage is a bit contained, okay, and hopefully hindi pa kakalat sa environment. It could easily be detected at that point. Okay, so that alone, yung number 5, if you are sure on your organization, no one is running as admin unless necessary. Okay, that would solve a lot of issue. Even not only malicious one, even yung accidental misconfiguration, diba? That would solve it. Diba? Kasi you won't delete a critical file on the OS if you are a standard user. Diba? You need admin privileges for that. Diba? And if you are a regular user, it would alarm you na, okay, you're deleting something or modifying something na you need admin privileges on. If it's unintentional, mag-iisip muna ng konti yung user. Parang, ito ba dapat kong gawin? Okay, hindi pala. So, move along. Okay. Okay, so that's the admin controlled use of administrative privileges. So again, very few instances lang yung kailangan mo ng admin. And once you've done the deed there, okay, switch back to your regular users. Okay. So why asset inventory? Diba? Let me introduce you to one of our favorite tools in penetration testing. We call this the phone plug. Okay. It is a small device. It's actually a Linux computer. But if question is, if I am an attacker and I plug this inside your organization, would you be able to detect this? Na some small device is attacking your environment. Diba? This is actually a physical Dropbox na iiwan doon sa environment. And diba, it looks weird, diba, kung ngayon mo lang nakita, but we could actually put some stickers on it that would make it look like this one, diba? Air freshener lang siya. Ito mukha siyang printer adapter, but it's actually a Linux machine. Diba? Next, put it sa ilalim ng workstation ng, let's say, receptionist. Diba? How would you be able to detect this without asset inventory? Diba? There's biglang nag-register sa isang system na, may new device in place that's wasn't supposed to be there. Asset inventory helps for you to detect this. But if hindi pa kayo satisfied, hindi ma-detect yan, mga problema yan. They actually upgraded it, this one. This is a working extension, power extension. But this part is where the Linux box comes in. And it has actually a 2-port switch, wherein you could actually put the workstation there and then the wall port on the other end. And it's now able to intercept that device, that network traffic from this device. And on top of that, they made it worse. Okay. If I'm able to detect yung traffic coming out from this device on our IDS firewall, diba? That's bad. Okay. There's actually a SMS plugin module for that device wherein I could control it via SMS. So it's communicating to me, the attacker, out of out of band. I'm not using the network. I'm using the telco's network with the SIM card. Okay, so you're not gonna detect my command being issued on that machine. So that's actually dangerous. But hope you realized asset inventory comes in play for you to be able to detect such device on your environment. But it looks simple. Asset inventory. How the security relates in this type of attacks help you mitigate that. Right? So that's initial 5. I'll be able to provide you some links on in-depth discussions on it, and you could again. We're not gonna proceed to the rest. Basically, yung other 15 of it, which mainly deals with email, malware, networks, IR, penetration testing, and this basically enables a more holistic approach on your security program to increase the impact of the first 5. So 6 to 12, we got maintenance, monitoring, and analysis of audit logs. Basically, this has something to do with collection of logs and someone actually processing and analyzing it. Diba? Collecting all the logs and no one's looking at it, medyo useless siya to some degree. You also got email and web browser protection, malware defenses, limits of control and network ports, data recovery, secure configurations, and for network devices and boundary defenses, basically our border firewalls. So limitations and control of network ports, this is wherein if we go with the physical port, diba? If we go to an organization, are all their ports active? Hopefully not. Right? But minsan maraming pera organization, everyone has a switch port under their table. And even though it's not being used, it's actually active on the switch. Anyone could actually plug into that and be in your network, bypassing a lot of your border control. So aside from physical network ports, we also have to do with minimizing the services on a machine, a workstation, or a server, meaning if I don't need a typical service running on a server, why would I have it exposed, right? Sample is, if I have a database server and it's not going to be used for a web application server, why is IIS or Apache web server running on it? I might as well disable it and install it. So We are trying to minimize the attack surface by limiting the network and controlling the ports. Okay, so the less, the better for security. Okay. Data recovery capability, this should also be in place. Diba? If you have a down database, this basically has to do with mainly on availability. If the database disk crash, are we able to recover the backup? We got cases wherein they were so proud that, yeah, may backup kami, okay, nag-crash yung database, walang problema, we just have 8-hour down data loss. But upon restoration, kamot sila ulo, harang, ano nangyari? Encrypted, sir, yung backup. Okay. Okay, so ano problema? Yung key po nandun din sa server na nag-crash. Okay, yeah. So apparently they weren't properly testing their data recovery capability at that point. They were able to get the data out, but they're not able to bring it back in. So they basically lost their entire database on it. Now, aside from that, there's also the threat of ransomware. I'm not sure if some of you were affected, but a lot of organizations, even SMEs, are being infected with ransomware. And if they don't have a proper data recovery capability, they're basically out of luck. A lot of their information gets lost. Again, we got cases then, they have a backup, but even their backup was connected to the network and it was also encrypted. So now their dilemma is, should they pay the attacker to get back their information or not? But paying the attacker is actually, we advise against it, because you're going to create what you call this, ecosystem. And aside from that, there's no assurance that they're gonna give your key back. So baka na double whammy ka. Nawala ka na ng data, nawala ka pa ng pera. So there's that. And of course, yung typical natin na malware defenses, this one, marami nagsabi na ito na security nila. Okay, meron kami antivirus, we're okay. That should not be the case. Antivirus or malware defenses, this is your last line of defense. Okay, dulong-dulo na siya. The moment na may attack na umabot dito, medyo magtaka ka na, kasi ibig sabihin, if you comply to a lot of security defense in-depth type of architecture, diba? Marami siyang dinaanan. Firewall, IDS, IPS, policies. Okay, and then the moment na mag-reach siya sa inbox no, or sa browser ng user, okay, medyo dangerous na yun eh. Kasi it's just a one click away to being executed. So, it's still needed. It is required. It's actually a lot of good antivirus na you could use. The Windows one, the Windows Defender, is actually pretty darn good nowadays. Okay, dati binabash nila, but well, it was made by Microsoft. They made the operating system, so there's no reason for them to be the last guy on the block. So they're actually pretty good, and it's free. It's built in. Okay, and if you have actually a cloud solution incorporated with your Microsoft Windows, they have anti-ransomware defenses wherein a huge chunk of your file gets synced to the cloud na naka-defense. Even though may mag-delete nun, you still have the capability to recover it. So that's and that's free, basically. Okay. So again, going back dun sa, yes sir.
Before we move on, no? So like sa top 5, you were sharing a while ago yung top 5 na important, right? Those are things that you can do at ease. Like pinento mo before that there was this company who shared a 2-year-old Excel file. Pero I think what we really just have to do is just update that monthly or at least weekly, right? And doon pa lang, like we're highlighting na like si Windows 10 has the Windows Defender, free antivirus, right? Pero if you just don't update your antivirus or update your OS, which should be free, parang nasasayang lang, right?
Yep. There's actually process in place. So it's part of the struggling on how do you actually update that data. But diba, if you have a biglang light bulb moment na I don't need to collect everything initially, lalo yung big organization, we could just start now with the procurement. Now, pwede mo sabihin sa procurement na the moment na may device na dadating, make sure that details is fed to the IT team, di ba? Para i-update the inventory nila. So, that's gonna be a process na solution, di ba? Not even the technical one. Diba? So, now every time a procurement buys a device, a laptop, a desktop, you get all the details, di ba? Anong model, anong hard drive, anong serial number, anong specs, then you could populate your asset inventory. At no cost, basically, just tweak a bit on your procurement process. Then once it's done, diba, you could now piece by piece, dividing per department, diba? Mag-audit ka this week for this department, ano yung mga nandyan, and then move along. And then eventually, if medyo okay na asset inventory, you could maybe switch to a more automated one. There are solutions for it. may open source but a bit more hard to configure and maintain. Of course, may mga commercial, but it would require resources for you to run on it. But there are solutions to do it. Again, merong no cost, may small cost, merong commercial solutions. So,
Mon, if
Maybe
I
sir.
may,
okay, so
Yeah, go ahead.
yes, sir.
Practice.
Yes, sir.
actually, from what you have said so far, no, it looks like the job of the IT personnel is numerous. They have to do a physical inventory. They have to check. You said a while ago that the more authority you give to users, they can easily click the wrong thing, and your company gets exposed. So what is required, therefore, is that the IT personnel should constantly go around, constantly update and record everything, because I think I've worked for many companies, and normally the IT unit is not a very big team. But from what you are saying now, I think the IT team should be sufficiently staffed in order to do all of these things. Am I right?
That is correct, sir. Okay. Especially yung usual for the IT team na kinakalimutan. Wala na nga security, wala pang nagre-remediation.
Yeah.
Okay? That's yung ano eh. And the problem with the remediation team, masyado silang burnout. Kasi Microsoft release patches every month. Diba? So, kakapatch pa lang nila this month, meron na nagpe-prepare na sila for the next month. It's the same cycle all over again. And some critical systems, lalo na yung mga walang redundancy, you just can't patch it directly. Okay, they need a lot of test, vendor coordination, diba? Only to patch it. And then after the cycle, oops, meron na naman patch yung Microsoft. So, it's a never-ending battle. It's not sexy. And we call it a dirty job. But someone's got to do it. If not, you're gonna get exposed. So there are automated solutions. There are automated asset inventory, patch management. So, but some of them costs an arm and a leg. Some are free. If you're actually a Windows shop, there's a free update service, the WSUS, Windows System Update Service. It's built in, and I'm surprised not a lot of organizations are using it on their own. Diba? Parang manual pa rin sila nagpa-patch, but that could actually save you a lot of pain in managing your asset inventory and patch management. So yeah, it's free. It's already, if you have an Active Directory environment, it's already there. Okay.
Raymond,
That's
if I may
important
suggest,
Go ahead,
if I
Mitch.
may suggest, maybe going forward, the IT guys or the IT team should be working very closely with management, or should actually form part of the management team. And when they create policies, they spread responsibility around the table, not just keep it to themselves. But at least you guys are supposed to point into the right direction, and then they can take over. Diba? So you don't take all the responsibilities to yourself.
Agree, sir.
Yeah,
So we
because
do have questions. No? Go ahead, Sir Francis.
yeah, I was just going to say, because in the poll, 70% of our participants said that securing their digital business is critical. So talagang dapat talaga we should pay attention to what the IT team needs to do, no? If we consider it as critical. Anyway, that's all I wanted to mention.
Yes, sir.
We do have some questions related to the
Yes, sir.
first
We could have
slide.
in-depth discussion.
Mon, no? So like one question is that if I'm affected by ransomware, so kunyari, na ransomware yung mga PCs namin sa company, right? Should we report this to the NPC? Pag ransomware.
It's a medyo gray area. But basically you are denied access to information. So it's part of the availability component. So it's not a breach. You would be mandated to report it as part of yung yearly summary. Ano yung mga incidents na nangyari. Kasi hindi naman siya major breach that would entail na-expose yung information ng ibang users. Basically, na-corrupt yung data tapos hindi mo na ma-access. Now, there are ransomware that extracts information tapos, diba, in-encrypt na yan tapos iba-blackmail pa kayo sa labas. Na, okay, we have your data. If you don't pay us, we're gonna publish it. So, that's bad. Kaya medyo on the bound ka ngayon na moral dilemma on what to do. Are you gonna pay or not? Again, if you pay, di ba? pwedeng hindi nila i-release the next 3 months, but diba? Pag naubos na silang pera, parang, uy, meron pa akong hawak kay Carl. Cheap, ano ulit, na $10,000, diba? If not, pa-publish ko. Wala na eh. Wala kang hawak at that point. So, better face it now. Okay? And just redo it cleanly at that point.
All right. So maybe we can move
Okay,
on sa side questions later.
So moving along, yeah, the easiest way to get inside the organization or compromise a user is really phishing. Even up to this point, it's really phishing. As mentioned, sending malware, ang dami na nag-filter na technology. You can't easily send malware via Google, via Office 365. It's gonna get dropped at some point. Okay. So the new thing that we are doing to infect the organization is we will just send you a link with the pretext and then ask for your credentials. No malware, diba? It's just the story is really good na magpapanik ka, makiklik ka, and then you'll send your username and password. Then that's it. I get access to your account. Okay. And we could actually tie it up with smishing and phishing. This is SMS phishing and voice phishing. The thing with this one is, diba, we have anti-spam solution, email filtering. Have you heard of an SMS filtering? Or a voice filtering sa call? Well, manual yun, di ba? Hindi ko, ayaw ko nang tumatawag, di ba? Sagutin, uy, text ni X. Ayan. Pero manual yun eh. You leave the decision dun sa user to believe or check kung sino yung mga nandun. Now, this one, senders could be masked. This was an incident, I think, July. Someone was able to pretend sa bank, local bank. And then they, okay, may number na tatawag sa'yo, mag-a-attract ng account update for to avoid deactivation. Diba? If up no, tapos mask, diba? Isipin nyo ng most users parang, uy, legit to. Okay, and then the moment na may tumawag sa user na yun, it's, yeah, that's, you were just phished. Give out mo yung OTP mo and then naubusan ka ng pera. So that's an ongoing problem. And on top of our issue with the pandemic, diba? A lot of attackers are monetizing yung pandemic. This was stat nung March. Okay. Now it's more. This March, we were tasked to penetrate. We were contracted. And then they said, masyadong heightened yung security awareness ng mga tao nila. They really need wherein measure nila yung security. We would be claiming that there is someone infected with COVID-19 sa building nila. So think of your mindset a week into the lockdown, early March. So it's March 17. Okay, everyone was just getting the hang of working from home, and then now, someone says na, okay, may COVID-19 sa office last week na might be exposed, in details nandito. Okay. And of course, this was a fake domain. It just looks like the company domain. Not much details here, but we increased their anxiety level, and once you click on the link, it would just present to you a fake Google login page. You won't notice the difference, especially if you are on a mobile device, because the URL disappears most of the time. And we even employed legitimate certificate, HTTPS. It's not gonna present to you a fake certificate, so there's not gonna be an error. So if the user plugs in their username, then their email, diba? We basically got access to their account. So the stat we got was within 1 hour of sending on a site and security aware organization, 50% click the links, 15% sent valid credentials, and 11% actually pushed through with their two-factor authentication token. So that's actually bad. But come to think of it, if you receive that email mid-March, sino yung hindi mag-click? And then sino yung mag-iisip na, di ba? Baka expose yung pamilya ko, di ba? Di ba? Nagisa to. So, yeah, it was bad. Yung pretext na yun, it's really, I call it borderline psychotic na nga. But attackers don't really care. So we just want to really to test if they're gonna be flagged from the user's perspective. So we really need to be educating our users more. Kasi given this scenario, diba, a highly security aware organization even got phished, then we got a problem. So the rest, yung 13 to 20 ng critical security controls, you got data protection, controlled access, wireless, because everyone's on wireless now. A common issue that we got with wireless is once you are in the wireless networking organization, you could actually see all the devices, all the servers, and the workstations from it. You could actually guest network ka. So if it's a guest environment na may mga bisita kayo, not much an issue now kasi wala naman masyadong mga bisita. Pero before, it should have been a separate network. They should not have access to the internal systems. But there's a lot of organizations still does that. So they really put na pati wireless access control should be in place. Account monitoring and control, di ba? If you have a resigned employee, are you properly deactivating the account? If an employee moved to a different department, di ba? Should their access be revoked from the other ones? Minsan nakakalimutan or they 1 week lang and then pansamantagal, di ba? After a few years, ang dami na niya access to a lot of departments na wala na sila dapat na access. And there's also, next issue security skills and assessment. This one is, if we are gonna increase our security, our technical team must be highly skilled to do that. Because if not, you might consider outsourcing or getting some consultants for you to help on producing a very sound security program. We also have application software security. This one is if maglalabas ka ng system or i-expose mo publicly, diba? From design, it should be security first. Okay. The problem is we got a lot of system that was internal only. Now it's exposed publicly because of the pandemic. And that's a high exposure for any organization. Kasi it's not designed to be exposed sa labas. But now we're exposing it. There's also incident response and management because if we have an incident, how are we gonna do it step by step? Okay. The last thing we want, nagka-incident, walang may alam ng plano, walang may alam mag-respond. Everyone's gonna be running like headless chickens and blaming. Diba? Hindi, system mo yan, na-breach, kasalanan mo yan. O hindi, data mo yan, hindi mo nung design natin to, sabi ko, lagyan natin ng firewall, hindi mo ginawa. So, it should be properly coordinated and properly tested. With we call it tabletop exercise para everyone's aware of their role and ideally oriented agad. Diba? If there's an incident, walang sisihan. Okay, that would come later on. But anyone who tries na mag-point fingers early on, frowned upon kasi you're not gonna be helping. The moment na may magturo, diba? Everyone's gonna shield up and not gonna be cooperative on the incident. Mas lalo lang mahihirapan yung responders. And of course, there's the penetration testing and red team exercises. We'll have some discussion on it. So, struggle on complying with critical security controls. Many orgs struggle to even achieve basic security. So, this one, scenario sa Home Depot, because security is not a major decision ng business, they were asking for years, we need new softwares, trainings for security and everything, blah, blah, blah. The management says, why? We are selling hammers. Why do we need security? Okay, and they get popped because the attackers are not after the hammers, they're after their credit cards, their customer records, right? So, yeah, problem is it's easier said than done. Okay, and at least on their side, at least sa Home Depot hack, people and data are there, but the systems are not. Sa atin sa Philippines, it's a bit more restrictive. Even the people are not there most of the time. So, hirap tayo to do it. And for a very successful IT security program, you need the triumvirate: technology, process, and people. Technology, of course, ito yung useless pag walang tao magmamanage. And then process, of course, meaningless if there's no people who's gonna execute it. So we really need a huge amount of skill set and people to really run a valid IT security program. So, and there was a survey nung 2016 at a Black Hat conference. So this is in tandem with DEF CON. This is a lot more on the security professional conference. And they say that why is our IT security strategies are failing? So for the longest time, laging ang narason is walang budget. Turns out, on a real survey, it was actually just 6%. Okay? And yung lack of management support is just second to the largest, which is the largest would be they are having a hard on board for it. And the problem aside from that is true technical IT security professional. You need a lot of years of experience in network systems and development. So it's very hard to find an individual. And even though you found someone, I'm not sure if they're going to be fit organization. Baka sobrang mahal naman ng cost, diba? So it's a constant struggle, but we need to really find a solution for it. So this talk is to some degree, hopefully it gets you aware and figure out na yeah, we need to solve some issues that we have in regards to security. So as mentioned kanina, di ba? How do you start, let's say, for the asset inventory? Organizations are already generating data. So you just need to find out at one point ng process natin na generate yun, and as early as possible, grab it and say on this one, sa asset inventory, feed it. Diba? For the network intrusion detection system, if we don't have it, we could empower our employees na if you receive an email na medyo weird, diba? Don't hesitate. Call the IT, forward it to them, tag it as a phishing email, diba, for their evaluation. So it's actually a sensor network na nag-iisip. Diba? You just need to empower them na it's not wrong to receive a phishing email. It's wrong to click on it, but in case you click, diba, huwag niyo papahiyain din. So the moment na may isa kang napahiyang employee na na-fish, diba, wala na mag-report. So it's has to be a culture of helping around forever. Everyone's a part of the team, basically. Okay, and oftentimes security is getting in the way of achieving something else. Like, diba? I have to launch something pero hindi pa na-test. Okay, yung security guy, isa yung bad guy. Parang, hindi. Diba? Delay natin na 2 weeks. Kailangan natin testingin yan. So, but if mali yung pagkaka-deliver niya, okay, the point is, he doesn't want exposure for the business. But if medyo arrogant yung pagkadating niya and hindi na relay maayos sa business owners, diba? Parang party pooper siya. So we don't want that. Security guy must also be able to deliver recommendations in a proper and courteous manner na bakit tayo magde-delay kasi ganito yung pwede mangyari, and if we don't do the testing or if we don't purchase firewalls, web application firewalls, IDS, and put it in front of it, diba? We risk getting reported to NPC, which we don't want. So it's a pros and cons. But eventually, security guy has to bow down to business. Okay? Yun yung maraming hindi nakikita nila. You are there to drive the business, not to stop it. Okay? Business yung priority. Like sample sa organization namin, I don't allow my employees to connect to public Wi-Fi because of the dangers on public Wi-Fi, but they need to work remotely. Diba? So I can't just say bawal ka connect. Diba? So the solution we got was everyone need to have mobile data. May cost involved, but diba, to support the policy na bawal ka connect sa public Wi-Fi, we have to put in something na in lieu of for that. So moving on, some case studies na you might want to be aware. So Equifax, they were hacked. Pretty big. It's a large credit card company in the US. They were hacked with a vulnerability that is known for a few months and they did not patch it. So yun yung point dito is the organization must fix vulnerabilities when they arise. Not okay, alam ko yung vulnerability ako next month na yan or next year na yan, di ba? So, di ba? Nagpa-pentest ka, nagpa-VA ka, pero hindi mo naman in-apply your recommendation. What's the point? Di ba? So, take Equifax case. Okay? And a lot of the board was fired. Di ba? Yung stocks nila medyo nag-drop and then they have to pay a lot of fines. Okay? Just because they didn't fix one critical vulnerability sa Apache struts at that point. Number 2. When the evidence is gone, diba? It's gone. Okay. This one is just pertains to you are generating a lot of logs and data. You should be able to collect it. Okay. It's free. The data generation is free. Most softwares to do log ingestion and correlation, there are free solutions, there are commercial ones. So if medyo on the budget constraint side tayo, we could opt muna for open source. Okay? And then if at some point meron na tayong budget for it, then we could create and replace with the commercial solution if it really doesn't work with the open source one. But again, data is being generated, diba? Logins, failed logins, financial transactions, policy generation, saan in-issue anong browser ginamit. Everything, every data, every point is there. We might want to start collecting. Kasi the moment the data gets generated and you did not collect it, it's gone. Okay? Wala na. Even just for business analytics, you might want to use this, right? Let's say you have an online system, parang ano pa ba yung OS na ginagamit ng mga users natin? Wala ng XP, diba? So Windows 8 pataas na. So you could drop Jurassic technology in support for the latest and the greatest. Kasi you know na 99% na users ko is hindi na gumagamit ng old system. So this could gain you insights on it. For penetration testing, you have two choices. Diba? Do you want to be breached by someone you know or someone you don't know? Right? Of course, best is someone you know kasi, diba? On a penetration testing engagement, they report to you the vulnerabilities and then you tune and fix your infrastructure and then go cycles back to the next testing. Okay? Then with pen test, pag sinabing I want a pen test, there's a lot of definition ng pen test. May compliance, may risk reduction with architecture review, and there's attack simulation to red teaming. And as yung details and but for a security organization, medyo mahirap may organization na lalapit sa'yo na I want a pen test but they actually haven't know the proper definition of pen test or what they want. So we present them this one and pen test what they really want to do. We want to do attack simulation kasi we got this entire suite of tools now we want to be tested, so that we could do that. Or minsan, may requirement lang sa amin let's say for the bank, BSP. So it's more of a compliance. So we could now assess ano yung proper types of tests na gagawin for the organization. Be careful though. Okay? There's always someone who will do it cheaper. So ingat. You should know first what do you want to achieve, and then once you try to evaluate penetration testing or security firms, get their skill sets and have someone vouch for them if they really know what they're doing. Kasi chances are, if you just call some reference clients nila, medyo weird pala or something, or magaling naman pala yung recommendation. So get some references. That would save you a lot of trouble and wasting our money to some firms na hindi naman pala yun yung in-expect mo na output. So I have this scenario on one of our internal penetration testing na we did on a bank. So this is an assumed compromise. You have a control of a workstation. And then we were scanning the environment from that workstation. And then we found a printer with the default credential. Okay. And then most pen testing firms should actually catch this one. Okay. Severity, low to medium, maybe. But it's a printer default credential. What did you actually do with it, right? And that's where modern team comes into play. So when we were validating this finding, turns out it's a document manager, meaning it has a scanner. And that scanned document is being uploaded to a file share. So this is the actual screenshot. We got the IP address, directory username, and the password that's obfuscated, of course, and here with the test button. We'll come back to that in a bit. Okay, so my objective is get that password so I could log into the file share and get the document from the scan. Okay. We back up the config, hoping that the password is going to be there, but unfortunately, wala, not sure why. And the next step we did was, okay, we control the printer. Now what we're going to do is going to set up a fake file sharing, okay, and we'll modify the destination host on the config and then hit the test button. Okay, that would basically have the printer authenticate to us, okay, to a box we control. So as mentioned, we modify the host name, okay, hit the test button, and then what the printer would do is think na kami yung file share, okay, and then hit the test button, sabi, okay, here's my authentication, okay, I want to upload something or just test something, okay, sabi ng printer. And then kami naman, of course, give me the credentials and then we'll be done with it. Now, on the technical side, the credentials wasn't plain text username password. It's not something we could use yet. Okay, so it's a hash, it's a form of the password, and we still need to process it. We call it cracking. We need to find out ano yung plain text version of password. So we have this password cracking cluster wherein it's gonna run very fast. dictionary-based attack, brute force attack across billions of minute. And then once it finds the password, it's gonna email it to me. So we send this to Amazon. We have our password cracking cluster there. Then within 8 hours, the server emailed me na, okay, Mon, here is the password that we cracked. Okay, let's test it out. So we're able to obtain the password for the server, the file share server, then log in. Then jackpot, we got passports, credit card statements, birth certificates, the whole document scanned within the last 4 years from that printer. And from low to medium, it's now critical or high. I'd say medium to high easily. And what that file share is actually being used by the IT team to back up workstations for formatting. Okay, and then I got some files, may source codes. We found one of the source code, may database credential, and then username, password, and the host. So we just plug in username, SA, SQL Server, and then we're able to log into the database. Okay, from the configuration file on the source code. And then we're thinking, okay, mukhang dev server to dahil it came from a development workstation. Only to find out when we were browsing the environment, parang, it was the backend system ng bank. Last transaction a few seconds ago, nandun yung mga account numbers, balance, parang, oh. So now, from low to medium, easily critical, right? And there's a lot of things in place dun sa critical security controls na if it was put properly, could have prevented this one. But it wasn't. And this basically just I want to highlight to you guys the mindset of the attacker once they are in the zone to get to the crown jewels of the organization. A lot of them are not really magic, sys-ad, network ad skill, and some sort of chamba to a degree, right? Okay, so last is the data is there until it's not. So this is ransomware. I'm sure some of you were affected on it. Iba baka tahimik lang. You will get infected. One user would open up an attachment that's gonna execute ransomware. Chances are, if you are not secured or isolated properly sa organization, you could be inoperable for quite some time, and that's bad. Okay, especially now, let's say for insurance, may magkikiling, diba? Tapos yung mga database mo encrypted, diba? How would you be able to validate kung magkano mabibigay ko, valid pa ba yung policies nito and everything? Well, you have the paper, but that's gonna take a lot of time to sort and find, right? But be careful with the data. Make sure you really have a backup na properly in place, so you should be able to restore operation with minimal data loss at that point. Okay. Right, let me check this out. Okay, yeah. So managing controls within the organization, the CSC is not a checkbox. Okay, they are guidelines for long-term security posturing. So you really need to put the CSC at the core ng mga product purchases, implementation of technology, training, response plan. So it's good to read on it, especially on the details. So the moment na meron kayong bibiling equipment or technology or service, you have the right questions to ask, and is this really a proper fit for my organization based on the security program that I'm trying to build. Last thing we want is, diba, we've been helping a lot of organizations na breach. Diba? The moment na ma-breach sila, if hindi pa sila nag-close, kaya meron silang blank check na, yeah, buy anything you want. Then that IT team would buy everything that they want, only to find out, diba, meron sila mga systems na 2 years na hindi nila nagagalaw kasi hindi pa tapos yung implementation nila sa mga una. And then nag-expire na yung licenses and everything. So it happens a lot of times. So it really needs to be programmed properly. Okay. So, and always keep especially scheduling in mind once you go to security programming. So some CSCs also have organizational plans for event and ensure that staff are properly trained. So like number 17, diba? Security skills assessment to be able to determine, diba, skilled enough ba yung mga tech guys natin to handle it. If not, diba, baka kailangan nila i-train, or we might need to hire someone to in place of that para mag-concentrate yung staff natin to kung saan sila properly skilled. Okay? There's also incident response management. Not necessarily a skill set ng any individual. It should be a team. Okay? Of course, a tech guy would help. But a lot of organizations parang as long as they are aware on what to do, okay, and they're just gonna call some tech guys at some point if they really need some help. Let's say for forensics or network imaging and network data collection or this imaging. So yeah, but if you are trained properly, most of this you could handle on your own. Diba? Let's say nagkaroon ng breach, easy kagad dyan, diba? Don't turn off the machine, diba? Disconnect lang sa network and then assess. Diba? Are we able to find out anong point of entry? If not, could we ask someone to as a help, or if nakita natin may nanakaw na data, diba? Meron bang PII? Diba? If may PII, gano'ng karami, is it reportable to NPC? And then anong oras magsisimula yung countdown natin to 72 hours para everyone's aware na may deadline na tayo in the next few hours na kailangan natin mag-report to NPC by hook or by crook. And as NPC naman, even though hindi pa kompleto yung details mo, diba? As long as you notify them na may nangyari within 72 hours, then just ask na, we're still investigating, right? So, diba? Wala namang Superman, lalo na kung major breach na makukuha mo kagad yung point of entry and what was stolen. So, you really need to manage them too. And they understand that. So, understandable naman sila NPC for that. So, and even though minsan mga 2-3 weeks na wala pa rin talagang linaw, you could even ask for extension pa.
We have a lot of that.
As long as you are keeping...
We have a lot of that in the insurance industry. Yung immediate notification of a claim.
Yep.
No need to give all the details yet.
Yes. Sorry. Familiar sa ganun. Anyway, so that's a huge chunk of my talk. May CCIS, Center for Information Security, meron din siyang hardening guide. So there's this site, it's yung cisecurity.org/CIS-benchmark. A lot of the software you have here, Windows, XP 7, 8, 10, Server 2012, 2016, different Linux versions, different web server versions, iOS, Mac, Android, mga hardening guides to secure. It's actually a huge document repository. Just go to this site, you will be able to download it, and then, well, hopefully not all. Kung ano lang applicable sa organization mo, then have your IT read through it, and then point out na kagad nila ano yung pwede nila i-apply. Now, without cost. Basically, ano lang, time lang. Kasi yung material lang dyan eh. So, they just have to ingest it and then run on it. This would basically increase your level of security posture agad for free. Kasi a lot of the recommendation here is already built in dun sa mga systems. You just have to tweak on it. And of course, make sure, diba, baka maging sobrang secure naman ng environment nyo, wala na makagamit. So, it's gonna be a balance of usability and security. So, we have to keep that always in mind. Now, what to do when hacked? Before your hack, you should have a backup in place. Then after your hack and you were able to notify everyone necessarily, change your password. Ideally, use another computer. Kasi on the event na may keylogger yung machine na na-hack, okay, they're just gonna give the new password to the attacker again. So use a different computer. Contact the IT security department or the help desk. They might be able to decide on how bad is it. Do we need third-party help for this one, or law enforcement na yung kailangan kasi binablockmail na tayo or something. So they'll decide on it. Another point is if you have an on-call or retainer-based na forensics or incident response firm, keep them on the call list para, di ba? Kahit na minsan nagde-decide pala kayo kung incident ba to o hindi. They might have some answer na, hindi, wala lang yan. Okay, so let's be done with it. Parang, or bigla, may phishing email kami natanggap na ganito. And then they already know kasi they're responding to another organization na similar breach, di ba? They could easily put a stop kagad dun sa inyo na early on na, okay, disconnect mo sa network yan and then we'll assess it. So, they'll have some insights na maybe more in-depth than what you would be able to accomplish on your own. And of course, for personal, monitor always your credit card transaction, di ba? Figure out kung merong weird transactions na hindi mo naman ginawa. But, well, some guys na medyo mayaman, parang mga few $100, hindi nila napapansin sa dami ng transaction nila. But still, you should be able to point out which transactions you did and which is not. Kasi you could easily raise it to the banks and flag it for fraudulent transaction. And they would most often have that refund it naman. So that's good. So reference tools, I have this an audit script. I'll present it to you in a bit, in 2 slides. This is an Excel file wherein it has the 20 critical security controls, and then you assess your organization parang pag assessment, you could put there. And then in the end, they'll give you a score for control. And then now you could step back and look sa and what could we actually do with no cost or minimal cost to increase our security posture, and then diba, reassess it after a few months again if nag-improve ba tayo at some point. So I have that. And then of course the CIS benchmark as mentioned kanina for securing your servers, laptops, workstation, and operating system. So if you want more of this in-depth, there's actually a course from the SANS Institute, and there is a certification for it called GCCC. It's a SEC 566 course, implementing and auditing critical security controls. You could take it online because of the pandemic. Otherwise, we have like Singapore for it, but now they're offering. I think this one just cost I think around 6,000 yung 6 days course. Yeah, so not too bad. Then you get in-depth knowledge on how to implement and properly audit this one. Okay.
Did we lose Senator Mon? Sir Francis, are you there?
I think
I'm here.
Mon froze.
Oo nga eh.
All right.
All right.
But while we're waiting for Mon to get back, you know what? There are two comments that are worth noting.
Yep.
One is from Mr. Joey Reyes. He's the current president of the Philippine Insurers Club, and he knows of where he speaks because he heads a company that it's IT related and also security is of utmost importance. No, he goes, I still believe that the most honest personnel in an organization are the IT people. They hold so much information at the tip of their fingers. Reason that we make sure IT guys are well scouted and properly documented. Remember, security is all about trust. Trusting the software, hardware, and person handling both. And the second comment is from an expert as well. She's from Carlet. She's Carlet Pama, the PIRA's the PIRA's independent director, and whose background includes security. Her comment is, there has to be a culture and a tone from the top of cooperation from all levels of the institution. If the culture is fault-finding, the risk is doubled. Also, there's a need to have the CISO be supported accordingly. And I can't agree enough with this, Carl, Francis.
Yes.
And I think we have one back na, no? And I'm
Oh,
seeing the
there.
screen.
Okay.
I think completely. Actually, a lot of this is really with the people. You know? So doon sa one of the slides that Mon was sharing a while ago is that the technology is there, and you can get free technology, open source. Sometimes if you're using Windows 10, and we all are, may antivirus na. Some things that you really don't have to spend a lot in. Pero it's really critical that the people are informed, or you have the policies in place or the rule so that people understand what they can do to protect the company and also themselves, right? So yung awareness lang na, oh, this is a phishing email, I have to report it so that the whole company can be protected, etc. Those kind of discussions, right? And I think we have more questions coming in. Maybe before we can end the slide with this Excel file. And I like this kasi sabi nga ni Sir Mon, right, we can do a self-assessment of ourselves. A lot of things that we can do are free, right? Definitely, I'll run this. But we do have some nice questions here, right? So, what do you take on security as a service offered by telcos? Do you think it's worth the price? So, the SaaS security services offered by telco. Parang alam ko tong telco na to, very known.
For ano naman, for security...
may something, social media ang kanilang user. I know this guy.
For any security services, you are not buying the company, you are not buying the service of the company, you're buying the skill sets of the individual, so operating it, right? So it's really best to evaluate what are the skill sets of those people that's gonna operate and manage your security services. So I leave it at that. You get the point. Kasi, it's not the name brand or anything. It's bawa, mekaniko, di ba? You don't go to a shop dahil yung pangalan ng shop. You go there dahil magaling yung mekaniko nung shop, di ba? So, I leave it at that.
And I think yung highlight rin dito is that you already mentioned Mon, right? There's a really a limited talent pool sa security, right? So I would say that you have to go with somebody that you trust or who can really prove themselves as a good security, who can provide that security as a service.
Yep.
Hey, Francis and Carl, there are
think-
two more comments that are very important not to miss. And these are from top-ranking management officers of companies. So one goes, therefore, there has to be a check and balance, such that several non-IT company officers should at least understand what's happening in IT. Very important kasi ngayon, we leave it always to the CIO and his team and we're in the dark. I think management should know a little about IT and security and all this. So these sessions are very important. And from Carlette again, comment number 2, training for IT personnel must be continuous. Often the training budget priority is always given to the frontliners. Know that for tech-dependent institutions, the lifeblood is in our IT personnel. And this is even more important going forward. Diba? And if I may add, wag lang IT, pati na rin management para maintindihan nila kung anong importansya ng IT. Everybody on board.
And I think also, Sir Mitch, what we also have to highlight there though is that it's also two ways, right? So sinashare ni definitely right now there's a swing, there's a balance towards one side that the management or the business is not listening to IT as much. Pero also at times, right, where the IT team for listening in this call, right, has to understand that business will always come first, right? So that's why sometimes we like the best tools, very expensive security features, and you'll just say because we need it, right? But in the end, if we buy those tools, it will cost the business an arm and a leg, right? So it's up to the IT guys to also understand what the business need is, and maybe there is a solution out there, and the control doesn't have to be a tool, right? It can always be a process change, right? And an education, right? Something that is completely free, but it will already protect your company. So those kinds of things would be thought of. Yeah.
Since we're in insurance, one very important tool is a risk transfer tool. Okay, and there's a question related to that. Have you encountered any client who was breached and they had a cyber insurance policy, which was a big help to them? I guess Raymond could answer this.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we did. What happened was they were insured, and then part of their insurance was the insurance company would have an incident responder go to their site and assess the breach. So it was, I think, part of the, how do you call this? I'm not sure if how to turn that. But the insurance sent us as part of the incident responder team to assess and help the organization bring it up. Now, the problem with the cyber insurance when we're actually checking yung policy was there's a lot of restrictions in place na, diba? Negligent, you got always being audited. So as in, sobrang super chamba at catastrophic nung nangyari para i-pay out nila yung loss basically of operation. But I think the incident responding was part of it anyway. But yung payout ngayon is gonna be due to loss of business and reputation. That's hindi ko na alam kung ano naging discussion nila. That's a subject for discussion of
I'm glad
how
you
much they're gonna pay
mentioned that.
based dun sa
I'm glad you mentioned that, Raymond. No, kasi I was going to tell the one who asked the question, Mr. Chris Marquez, that even though you had a policy that would pay for the damages, ang isang napakahirap i-insure is a reputational damage that an institution gets. Walang presyo yun eh. So it's best that even though you have insurance, have your security processes checked out, right, by the experts like Red Rock. Ayan, free plugging.
And to some degree, diba, if you watch news sa bank breach or fraud, sometimes yung fraudulent amount malaki, mas malaki pa yung nawawala sa stocks nila the moment that when the news gets out. So ano yung reputational damage yun eh. So they eventually would be able to uh, recover that, but sometimes hindi. Some organizations magpo-fold na lang talaga the moment na magkaroon ng breach. No one's signing up with them na, di ba? Yeah.
There's a question
So yeah, I think we
here
could
from sorry. There's
okay.
another question here from Carlette.
Okay.
How do you underwrite a cybersecurity policy? Well, Carlette, there's a lot of things that they look into. Number one, they look into the backgrounds of your IT people, no? Are they capable of running an IT department? And then they also look at your systems, the processes that you have in place, the audits that you have in place. If they're satisfied with this, then you get better rates. But there's a lot of things that they look into if they issue a cybersecurity policy. That being said, there are only what, siguro, less than a handful of insurance companies that do this locally. But I think this is one of the low-hanging fruits of this COVID thing. Maybe insurance companies would like to think of going into cybersecurity.
And I think we have one last question in the pool. No? So I think this is related to what you were highlighting earlier, Mon, right? Why don't we regulate unique SMS sender IDs to prevent smishing? And then I think we can go head on to your file. Right?
Okay. That would be in the telco side and NTC side. Ideally, it should be regulated. Mask, if it's issued by the telco, is regulated. I used to work for Chica, so we got a lot of number masking. That point, we can't use any other organizations. Pinifilter na ng telco. So this was a clever hack. Yung slides na pinakita ko kanina, that a bank was attacker was able to mask as a bank OTP. I'm not sure if they have a finding na paano nakalusot yun or what, but it should be. And as far as I'm concerned, it is filtered on the telco side. Baka may nag-upgrade ng firewall, nakalimutan yung rules, di ba? Tapos tumatagos yung mga ganun. So at some point, it should be closed. It should not be allowed. Yes.
So a lot of trust is really placed on our telcos. Kasi if they get hacked, well,
yes.
Ayun, they can actually impersonate those spectral.
They got some issues before na yung palit SIM, right? Diba? Pupunta sa store, sabihin siya yung authorized owner or dinelegate siya ng owner to get that. The moment you get the SIM, diba, all the OTP and reset pins is being sent to that SIM now, and they could reset the accounts. Diba? Banks, Facebook, Gmail, then even the email, diba? Nandun din yung mga reset email, so they're able to control you just the SIM card. Diba? If they take a control, if the attackers get control of it.
Right. I think that's all the questions. So, Mon, maybe you can guide us
Yep,
to this
okay.
tool.
One, are you seeing this Excel sheet?
Yes, we are.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, this is the audit scripts for CIS Critical Initial Assessment Tool. So we recommend this to do self-audit for any organization kasi this would give you a score per critical security controls, and then you could have here like this one, utilize active discovery tool to get your environment asset inventory. Then you could have here, diba? Kahit policy, everything here stems from policy. Do you already have policy in place? Then you could say na may informal policy, may partial written policy, may approved written policy. Okay, and then as you select na meron ka na dito, most systems, okay, automated on all systems. Ideally, objective nito is automate as much as possible to minimize yung harm. But everyone stems from policy kasi you can't automate something if there's no policy in place for it, diba? Kasi what's gonna be supporting yung resource requirement for that if the board is not aware of or hindi ka nagpa-upload ng any policy for it. Then so once you've selected any of this one, you get scores on the upper left, and then you have 20 controls here in some details. Medyo marami to, so I won't be itemizing them. So it's around 20 controls. Okay, and then you go back to your dashboard. You have a score here for 20 critical security controls. So this is what you could present to management, to the board. Ito tayo last year, ito tayo this year kasi nagbigay tayo ng resources. And we think now we need more resources to improve, let's say, critical security controls number 9 and number 17. Okay? And then we could improve on number 12 just with some policies and procedures in place with no cost. Okay, so yun yung gusto nila marinig lagi, di ba? At no cost. Okay, so dadagdag lang ng some policies and procedures. So, yeah, if you actually score at least 2 on the okay. Kasi doon, not without awareness of the CSC, you were able to already score 2. That's actually good, but that's very hard to achieve at that point. Level 3, that's actually typical secure organization at that point. Okay, I haven't seen yet anyone locally na umabot ng 4 yung score. So, wag kayong panghinaan ng loob kung nandun kayo sa range ng 1 to 2. It's still okay. Okay, you still needs improvement for it. And now, at least you have something to measure on. Hindi kagaya dati na, di ba, pulling data out of thin air ka lang. And then, secure tayo kasi ganito. Now, it's secure tayo kasi we got the numbers to bank on. Okay, and that's free. I have the link there. I think Sir Carl will be sending you.
And on the slides,
Then,
you can share the slides
attendees.
the community naman, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, sir. So I think that's my presentation. I have my email here in case you have questions I wasn't able to answer or natulog kayo mamayang gabi na may isip kayo tomorrow morning. You could shoot out email kay Carl or to me directly. We'll answer it as we can. I think that's it. Any questions or comments? Violent reactions?
I have a
Yes,
question. Actually, Mon, I was hoping that somebody will ask this question from the participants, but since no one did, because I want to just give you a scenario, a typical scenario, from an insurance company with regard having to secure their data. And I'm just tying this up with our previous webinars already, that for you to be competitive, you have to be digitally transformed already. So you'll have to be one step ahead of the competition, and you have to be digital in order to do that. And one of the wishes or dreams rather of insurance people when it comes to claims is that we wanted our claimants to be able to access our database in order for the claimants themselves to be able to check the status of a claim at what stage it is in by themselves without the need of trying to contact somebody from the company. Now, the question is, for that to happen, will the company really have to expose themselves, expose their database from being hacked in order to do that? Because that is a usual predicament that we are in. Okay, we do that, but we expose ourselves. So but we need this to be competitive, to be giving the best service to our clients. How will you answer something like that, Raymond?
I would put it on the architecture, skilled architecture side, because you don't have to expose your entire database. Diba? You only need those currently active na may claims, right? So you put a separate database just for that, and then the moment na may mag-trigger doon sa main database, you just push the data there. So you minimize yung exposure nyo at that point. And then yung server na since it's gonna be exposed outside, you could protect it with the usual HTTPS certificate, web application firewall, limited requests on what they could actually send and get data out of it. And even if it gets breached, hopefully you have it not, but if it gets breached, you have very limited amount of information that's gonna get exposed. Doon lang yung may active claim. Kasi the moment na tapos na yung claim niya, di ba, you just pull it out after, let's say, a week. Di ba? It's less exposure. Or you could do even with SMS route. Diba? Just text SMS gateway, then sabihin lang niya sa'yo, ito yung policy number, ito yung current status. Diba? Minimal exposure. It's not as fast and not as exposed as web. Diba? But now, they still get the status on their claims with minimal exposure on your end and the organization. That's my 2 minutes skilled architecture.
And I think the highlight, Jen, is that it shouldn't stop you from doing all of these improvements. Kasi once you stop because you're so scared, hindi na tayo kakita eh. So I think it just has to be done in a very elegant manner so that you're still protected.
The approach dun, sir, is minimalist approach lagi. What kind of information lang do I need exposed and then keep them separated lagi. Okay? And don't expose your main database dun lahat nagko-query. Okay? Make the database push the data dun sa exposed one. So in case this gets breached, walang path from this database to get into the main database. So
I think that's the rule of thumb that you have to follow, really. No? If it can be helped, do not expose your main database to anybody. I think the banks do that as well, right? The banks do not expose their main database.
Can comment.
You're on mute,
Now, just my 2 cents worth, no? Oh, not really 2 cents worth, pero just a reminder for all the participants. Remember, we have a data privacy law in place already, and it's kind of tough. It's not only a monetary penalty, pero it includes the incarceration of the president or the CIO. So we have to take this seriously. So if I were you guys, I'd have an audit taken and I'd contact the experts. Diba? You don't want to be responsible for this. I don't want to spend all my life in jail. I'm glad I'm retired. Sorry, Chris.
Okay, so maybe Sir Mitch, I think there's no more questions. Any other things to share?
None for me. I'd like to thank Raymond. Raymond, that was very helpful and it was an eye-opener. Marami tayong siguro.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, it's an eye-opener for most of us. Thanks.
All right. And I think, so just to share before we end, right? For the next series, we are inviting Mr. Amir Shabat. So he's from Silicon Valley. I believe he's Chief Product Officer of Twitch, right? So for those who are young, right, and know what Twitch is, right? Or well, basically it's a streaming service, and he will really help us look into new products, right, that we can offer, right? So we're coming from somebody in the US, so a little bit more advanced. What are the things that he has learned from advanced first world countries, or more on how to think of product, right, and related factors, right? So I think that's it, right? So once more, thank you very much to everybody who joined, right? So, and we will be sharing this recording, and thank you, Mon, Sir Francis, and Sir Mitch for joining us in this session.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Raymond.
Everybody.
Thank you, sir. Regarding Sir Mitch, Sir Francis.
Thank you, Raymond.
Hey, thank
See
you.
you soon.
And please answer the webinar survey. So if there's any ways that you can improve the whole series for us, and we have feedbacks, we actually share this feedback to Sir Mitch, Sir Francis, so that we can improve the succeeding session. So once more, guys, thank you so much for spending your Wednesday afternoon with us.
Thank you, Carl, as well.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Raymond.
Thank you, Mon.
See you.
Bye now.
Okay.
Bye.